What's going on, everybody? Welcome back today for another movie review. Najir, alongside of Zero Gravity, your host of the Blurry Massacre podcast. Which, once you check out this review, you make sure you check out their premiere episode today. Go check that out. And I appreciate you all coming back in my comments and let me know that you did so. That way I know it's real. And you also make sure you like and subscribe to theirs as well and leave feedback. Since it's a podcast, so you got to rate it. So make sure you do your job. But today, we're going to be reviewing the film Studio 666, which is coming to theaters the end of this week, February 25th. Now, if you are a Foo Fighter fan, you're about to have a hell of a week because this film is by them. But not only just that, they're going on tour a day immediately after, where they start their tour immediately after that. So if you're a Foo Fighter fan, you're just living in heaven because you're like, man, more and more content. They just did like a documentary or some type of mini series on Paramount Plus. Now they got a film and then a tour. So what a time to be alive. But we're going to focus on the film, and I'm definitely going to give you my thoughts about the things I liked, the things I didn't like. That's us collectively. Talk a little bit about the ending, and then I thought what was important for this film is that we should talk about what it takes to enjoy this film, because this is a film that I feel like it's a cult film. And whenever you say cult, that means like it has a niche, has an entire fan base, and they're going to ride with it no matter what. And I think that's important to kind of like mix in here a little bit, because I thought this film, I felt a little disconnected at times, but then there was times I was like drawn in, and then there was time I was disconnected again. And I know that's just because, number one, although I know like one or two songs from the Foo Fighter, I know My Hero, and obviously I could recognize their songs by my rock band and Guitar Hero days.
Hey,
but I was never overly a fan, and that's not to say that they're not fantastic, especially Dave Grohl, who just has a tremendous catalog of working with so many different bands and just work all over, who not only is your lead singer of the band, but he is the lead of this film. And I gotta say, he must have had a hell of a time, because this had to be a passion project for him, because it was a lot of him in this. But Zero, I just taught the whole hell of a lot. Can you tell us what this film is about?
Well, if you haven't guessed already, this film is about the Foo Fighters. They're playing as themselves, and they're coming up on their 10th album release.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But they have like crazy writer's block. So they're going like to the absolute extremes in order to generate some sort of juices flowing, which naturally finds them in a very uncomfortable spot.
Yeah, so they go off the grid a little bit to this like remote mansion studio. Like they didn't hit all the studios in the area, and like Zero said, they're trying to hit their creative juices. So the manager hits up a person that he knew, and she was like, yo, I got this perfect place, and it's a mansion. And they end up trying to essentially just go in there and record, but they realize that like actually we probably need to just stay in here for a while. But it wouldn't be a horror film if it was just talking about recorded music and getting out of here, because of course the mansion has some demonic presence in there, and it ain't just like predicated to the house, it's actually predicated to music, and it's actually an entity of possession. And so like it's not just a haunted house, like this entity is like free roaming around doing what he wants to do. Like you can be outside the house and got so it's a lot of different things happening, but essentially that's what the core of this film is. The band, they need to get their 10th album out. They are definitely stuck. As you say, they go to the furthest extent and go into this remote mansion that is clearly haunted, and they get it done.
But at what cost?
Yeah, what cost? So we're going to start it off like this. We're going to talk about things we liked, things we didn't like, and then we'll talk a little bit about the ending, as I said, and then as I said also earlier, we'll talk about the keys I feel important to enjoying this. So we'll start with you. What were the elements of this film that you like really enjoyed?
I just like Dave Grohl. I think that he, there's very few people that I would put in this category, but I do believe he is an American treasure. I think that he has been on the scene long enough to have everyone's respect, and I am thrilled that he is a horror junkie. like the rest of my fandom, that just makes him even cooler on top of everything else cool that he's done. So
Yeah.
I appreciate this. And things that I liked about it, I went in kind of understanding what it was. This was just kind of like you know, the movie that I would make if I were Dave Grohl and I had all that money and time and ability to do whatever I want and get cameos from whoever I want, just creating a fun film. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
One day I'll get there, but today's not that day. But when I'm Dave Grohl, sure. So I knew not to expect like something crazy. But I something that I wasn't expecting that I did end up liking a lot was the practical effects. There are some cool effects that are trickled out throughout the movie. Um, Very far and few in between, but when they do happen, it's always like it got a chuckle out of me. Sitting on the couch here just now. So that was fun. I do think it took like a little bit long to get into there, but once we got there, I was like, okay, here is the true. This is what they spent their money on. This is what they really spent their money on. Did look good to me. Um, and I appreciated a lot of the jokes. Although I'm not the biggest Foo Fighters fan, so I think that I may have been missing some things.
Oh, mm-hmm.
But we'll get back to that later. But I appreciated just kind of the aura of like, this is no big deal. This is
Yeah.
really just kind of what we wanted to do, which is cool. And I hope I get to do that someday. But it's like those stupid little movies that you would make with your friends, like after school with your little camera that you just got from Radio Shack. But now we're fully grown adults and still have a sense of humor and fandom. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it was lighthearted. It was cool. I am a really big fan. This is gonna be ringing my bell. I'm a really big fan of Tenacious D. So I was excited to watch this movie because I love Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. I like Tenacious D. I love Jack Black. I love Tenacious D's music. Kyle Gass, they're fire. Even though they're two hilarious dudes, they do make good music. And that movie is awesome. And it's a little more off the rails than this one. But yeah, I was down to give it a shot.
Awesome. You brought up something that's very important here. And yeah, although Dave has a shit ton of money that I don't know about or might not being paid for to do this review, at the end of the day, it is still an independent film funded by his pockets, I would assume, or all the folks in the band and whatnot. Which means that you also still got to look through it as an independent lens. With that being said, the production was great.
Yeah.
I at no point felt like this was a low budget film. I felt like in its entirety, the production was great. I thought even with some of the things, which I'll talk about in a second, that I did not like as far as the visuals, I still thought the cinematography really did their job, considering that this set location was a mansion, obviously either somebody's house that they know, definitely somebody's house that they know,
I'm
but
sure.
you still had to, yeah, you still had to do some of these shots, and the way how they did it, especially in some of these like smaller halls and some of these panning overall shots and whatnot, I thought they did a really good job in the production. So that's the first thing that stood out to me. Going back to Dave, I mean, again, not a person that I know personally, only heard his vocals through music, but he has a lot of charisma, and it was very easy to digest him on my screen all of this time. Because to the other thing I don't like, which I'll talk about in a second, for the runtime to almost be 2 hours, I never got tired of Dave, which was really, for somebody I do not know in terms of acting. So for me, it's like for me seeing an actor for the first time, I was definitely like, I can do a lot more of this guy. Like, he's truly entertaining, great charisma, the mannerisms, some of the dialogue, like you said, I didn't connect with, but some I did. And when I did, I thought the banter was fantastic, to the point that I was like, I don't know if I'm full blown laughing, but I'm definitely chuckling, and that like tickles me inside. Like, I like that. Like, you look around like, does anybody else pick up that joke? Don't matter. I got it, and I enjoyed that. So, but yeah, production and Dave, and then I gotta say, the first 2 minutes of this film was like, okay,
Oh my gosh. I thought it was awesome.
yes,
But it set a really radical tone for the rest of the
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
And then we didn't get there until 3/4 of the way through. And I don't want to say I was falling asleep or anything. I was definitely with it. Um, but I was like, okay, when are we going to get to that bloodbath that we were just teased in the beginning? And we got it eventually, but like I said before, it was far and few in between. When it
Yeah.
did happen, it was pretty cool though, but a little
Yes.
bit of a letdown.
Yes. Right out of my mouth. I know where to put this in my positive or my negatives, but the first 2 minutes was so impressive that I was like, hell yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I literally was like, I'm just gonna pour a drink real quick and I'm about to let the energy flow because it really set a tone to like, oh, this is about to be bloody brutal. And like
Mm-hmm.
you said, and much like I was saying too, the consistency of the toning was bouncing around, and it was like, well, I hope in like at least 20 minutes from now we get some more of that. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. Clock, about an hour now. What's up with this? And it did at some point, come back around, but I don't know. I think, and that's where like I feel like if you are a true fan, you would have been fine with this because as we kind of, unless there's some other positives that you have right now.
Hilarious cameos.
Absolutely. Good point. Absolutely. And more cameos, not me even sure that I knew who some of them were.
Oh,
Obviously, I
I
knew the big
definitely
ones.
missed some. I
Yeah.
definitely missed some, but okay, we're doing spoilers, people. So
Yeah.
like here they come. Fucking Lionel Richie.
That's what I said. I was like,
What? He
what?
starts playing the song and immediately I recognize the song, so it gets a little chuckle because I'm like, oh haha, that's funny. And then he turns around, he's there. I'm like, what? And then second, fucking John Carpenter
Yeah.
is your sound engineer? What? Both of
Yeah.
them so good, and I did not expect that, like, at all. So that was a fun surprise, definitely.
Yeah. Also, a quick diss. Well, more or less like I don't know if it's a diss or if it's just like a debatable
Coldplay?
top barbershop Coldplay. You know what I'm getting at? Yeah. Yeah, it was like, oh, Foo Fighters is my second favorite band after Coldplay, and I'm like,
Yo, you know what? It's a
the
bad time to be Coldplay right now because we just passed the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl,
Yeah,
exactly. That's
and you know
exactly what I was getting at
everybody
there.
likes to talk about that one.
Yep. That's
And
exactly
now
what I was
this.
getting at there. Yep. That's exactly what I was getting at there. This film has amazing timing. I mean, I'm sure that they planned it with the tour, but overall, I think that it's just a really good timing for all things considered to really put this out there, and then make money however different ways that they can. But yeah, going into the things that I did not like. Now, these are easy for me. The first one is the timing. It had no reason to be as long as it did,
Yeah.
and I think that the only reason why it went this long is because I know that there was an emphasis on the music and the sound. They know it, and they were good. I should have mentioned that the sound and the music was good. And as a
Of
person
course.
who slightly dabbles into rock, at the end of the film, I was definitely like head nodding, like seeing it because they're musicians and not just musicians, but they're damn sure good ones.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to really get into stride and to really produce the music, because that's the story here. They're trying to get out of this creative block to actually produce the music. So you have to see kind of the struggle, the disconnect and whatnot. But when they actually start to get into it, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. I can get with it. So my issue now here is two things. The film is presented as a horror film instantly, a brutal horror film. And then you get away from that and then you make it about music for about an hour. So I'm totally lost in the genre now because it's not half and half in that first little block. It's like here's an introduction of something, and then you're anticipating that it doesn't happen, and then an hour of the music. And I don't think the mesh, how they blended it, essentially the editing, it could have been better because you could have done both and kept both audiences happy. And again, if you are a fan of them and like you went into this like I can't wait to see them, all the traits and personalities of each of the band members, you're going to have a great time because you're going to see them distinctively all be different, but you're always going to have that just like, ha ha, I knew he would have did that. I knew he would have responded like that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for somebody who isn't, it's kind of like, well, I just want to see a good film and I appreciate all it presents. But like, what genre am I watching now? I definitely don't wake up one morning saying I want to watch a horror film and then I end up in a teen chick flick and I'm okay with it. It just doesn't work that way, you know?
I think just straight up, I would call this like a Foo Fighters fan film. This is a film for Foo Fighter fans. And hey, another spoiler warning. All the band members die. They kick rocks and they were good deaths. Most
Absolutely
of them were pretty good. And I mean, of course I was able to enjoy them, but if I knew the band culture and if I were like a real big fan of the Foo Fighters, those deaths would hit so much harder.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I didn't think of that. Yeah, and because of the severity of these deaths, because they're brutal, and I think they are good. I think they're toting around Mortal Kombat 11 and 12 ish good.
Yeah.
So somebody definitely takes an L with a symbol thrown at their neck. A chainsaw goes through. Yeah, it's a bloodbath. But you're absolutely nailed on point. I didn't even think of that. But I also think on the other end, I mean, I would think that these band members, as long as they've been together, as long as they've been friends, you know, the camaraderie should be strong. I can tell you one thing: deaths meant nothing to anyone. If somebody died, they were just like, "All right, cool, back to the music."
True.
So I was kind of like, "Oh shit, we're not even gonna focus on that at all." All right, cool, on to the next. But the other thing I didn't like was you brought up a good point too. The practical effects were amazing. Well, notice how you didn't say that all the visuals was amazing. That's because the CGI was bad to me.
Yeah.
I can't even fake that one. Like there's an electric death early in this film. And
oh yeah. Pretty bad.
It was on the lines of, you know, the Instagram, I got an app to add some effects to my photo type of thing. And
that, and then there was another towards the end. I think it was like
the
supposed
book
to be depicting like, oh, the book and also like ghosts in the air.
Yes. Oh.
Which was honestly kind of weird to look at because like we're in a time right now where CGI is so advanced. And now, I mean, this is indie, so it's a little bit different, but not by much. Still, the CGI in indie films that come out today is way better than the CGI in indie films that have come out, let's say, 25, 30 years ago. So one, I'm not used to seeing like CGI like that anymore. It kind of brings me back to like Spawn. Like
kind the floating, like green screen, whatever you call them, lines that hold you up, definitely.
Yeah, the wires. And so seeing that and then like 7 minutes later, like a really sick practical effects head pop, which looks really good.
Really good.
It was just kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know. It was a weird thing to come across. Like you usually don't experience that in horror. Definitely not normal. It's like either one or the other. But yeah, I don't know. Weird sensation, but definitely doesn't take away from any of the special effects because they're at different times, but you can totally tell the difference.
Yeah, because you think like when it comes down to effects, although they're different departments, but you want continuity between the two. So like one has to look at the other and say like the practical effects are amazing, cool. Then the CGI is applied, but then the CGI was so bad that you were just like, wait, whoa, keep that. I can't do without it. All of it, I can't do without it. But yeah, you know, when you talk about the practical effects, the special effects design and makeup design folks did a fantastic job up and down. Every brutal kill, every bit of token heads floating around and whatnot was really good on that note. But yeah,
even so the demons, I'm pretty sure those are like practical. Maybe they're like practical mixed with some CGI, but they didn't look like, I mean, I'm a big fan of like monster designs. Like I want to see the whole monster most of the time. But I kind of thought that the look of the demons was kind of vibey. Like it wasn't all there, but my brain kind of registered it as like a style choice, but not the CGI. That's totally different.
definitively the CGI
That
was
was
just not
not a
good.
solid choice. That was
Yeah.
just, we ran out of money, so this is what we got.
Yeah, exactly. I was literally about to say, like, it looked like they allocated funds to practical effects. And I was like, well, what about the CGI and post
Yeah.
production?
We
It's like,
just need
oh
to make
shoot,
right?
don't you got an Instagram app or something? Like, literally, Ty felt. um, I should mention too, like, again, the sound mixing and score, all of that was fantastic. But that's a no brainer, just to make sure everyone across the board
Mhm.
understands, like, this is a real band, so it definitely was going to be top priority, the easiest thing for them to accomplish. Better yet, I bet you they have so much extra footage from all
Oh,
the
yeah.
from playing. A true fan would love to have this as a collector's item, because I could imagine there's so much more additional music and content
Mhm.
and shots from this. So but what else? So we got the cameos. Oh well, the last thing for me on negatives is that although this film, which I should have said early, is very campy, it
Oh,
does
yeah.
not try to take itself serious at all. And I think that's one of the keys I'll talk about in terms of enjoying this film. But the dialogue is definitely a hit or miss for me. And
Mhm.
me personally is because, as you were saying, it's sometimes they land, sometimes they don't, and it's just, it caught me in the shuffle. Like, I'm just gonna lag because I don't know what you're really talking
Yeah.
about. You know what I
Yeah, the
mean?
awkward laugh. Love that.
Way too much of it though. Way too much. Way too much. So I was just kind
Mhm.
of like tiptoeing around, like, all right, maybe I'll get the next joke. Hell, what time? How much time has passed? And then it's like, oh well, the music and whatnot. And then it's like, finally, some gore, some killing,
Mhm.
some nonsense going on in here. So this pacing and the dialogue, which I can say the script was definitely kind of
Yeah,
meh.
Dave Grohl wrote that script. He just wanted to have a good time. I'm pretty sure it was, like, him and his buddy. They're probably all his band members are, like, getting high in a room, and they're just like, "So what happens if we do this?" And I think that's
Yeah,
awesome. I do think that's awesome,
absolutely.
but it would definitely hit harder if I were more on the inside. Maybe
Yeah.
those jokes would hit harder for us. But I was able to appreciate it for what it was. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the keys to enjoying this, which we will reiterate a couple of things we said, then we'll talk about the ending. But for me personally, I think, this is the easy no-brainer. If you are a fan of them, you're going to enjoy this film.
Mhm.
And that's not even a question, because you now connect in every element of what they are trying to present. And much like Zero said, this is Dave's passion project, which he sat back and probably wrote it. And I didn't look at the credits or anything. Oh, well, I'm not going to tell you why I didn't look at the credits, but didn't look at the credits and anything. So I really don't know who wrote it, but we know it's brought to you by the Foo Fighters. So therefore, we can assume that they're wearing multiple hats, especially Dave. Therefore, with my assumption, I'm going with he wrote it. And I'm saying that by that effort, I definitely tip my hat to them, because production and everything,
Yeah.
it's a solid film. But when you are a fan, a true fan, you will enjoy this from every department.
Mhm.
My last two things I'll say is, I feel badly enough to say this because I really don't try to promote it, but here we are.
Let's go.
I definitely think Substance will help you really breeze by this, because it's long. It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours. And I'm telling you that if you drink then or whatever, do your thing. I think it will absolutely help lighten, not just lighten some of the stuff, but also think, because the tone of this film tries to stay light, and it doesn't try to
Yeah.
take itself serious, that if you remain in that mindset, I think you would get by in no time. And I think for me, the difference here is that you set a precedence in the beginning
Mhm.
that this is going to be some type of slasher, bloodbath, haunted house film with an entity possession. That's a lot of things I like. A lot
Mhm.
of things. And you told me that in 2 minutes. And so I'm looking for it. So my expectations is looking for it. So now you created an expectation for me that I never had.
Yeah.
So of course I'm being a little bit critical now, but then I got to keep remembering that they're not taking themselves serious. All right, snap out of it, snap out of it. They're not being
Right.
serious, So that's why I'm saying, like, you know what, this probably isn't a bad film to kick back and have a drink or two, or some
Yeah.
popcorn with a bunch of butter, so you can get that salt rush, whatever it may be. But I definitely think that's very, very key into
Yeah.
going into this film.
This movie it's a two-beer problem. and it's a 3-beer solution. That is the equation.
Why do I know you? Why do we do these things? Like,
But I don't know. I think it's true. I mean, if you're a Foo Fighters fan, like, of course, you get the idea. You're probably one of those fans who's just happy to be here and happy to get new material, because old guys rock. We know
yeah,
this, but you know,
yeah.
if you're just looking for something new to watch for a good story, for good practical effects or any one thing, I don't know if this movie will have that one thing that you're looking for if that one thing is not already the Foo Fighters or just Dave Grohl. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know what I was thinking about comparing this to. If this is the start of them collectively making films, I'm not mad at it, because when you think about other rock folks who have came into the horror genre, and the first name that quickly jumps out to me is Rob Zombie, is
Mm-hmm.
that you create your cult, and then you start to, I mean, your ultimate goal is to have a cult classic, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially you have to create an identity for
I don't
what
know. Rob
your
Zombie's goal
films are.
might be just to have a cult. Period.
I think, yeah,
Was Rob
yeah,
Zombie, was he in film first or in music first?
I think music.
I don't I This is an honest question. Chat, how about you like
Yeah,
leave a comment and let us know? I'm not sure. I
yeah,
am a fan of Rob Zombie's horror films, but they're like super stylized.
yeah.
They're super super fucking stylized. But Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny though. I literally own it on DVD and I watch it all the time. I have I'm not even shitting you right now. I have the soundtrack in my car. I'm that serious. But is it a good movie? No, it's absolutely horrible. If you're not a fan of Jack Black or Tenacious D, it's not a good horror film.
Yeah,
Same thing here. That's fine.
and that's fine, and that's totally fine. And to the Rob Zombie point, to yeah, jump in the comments, let us know who came first,
Yeah,
the
who
chicken
came
or the
first?
egg. But I
Mhm.
do, but for me personally, I know like my folks was not letting me watch this till I got to a certain age, so I wouldn't even have known regardless until I just got into one. I was like, cool, that's that. So yeah, let me know,
Mhm.
because I'm definitely going to be like, ah, interesting. But
Oh, I got another one. If you're not a fan of rap music or Snoop Dogg in particular, you have no business watching Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes, exactly. That's a good analogy. So to my final point with him is just that, like, if this is going to be the beginning of something, I don't know what the identity is.
Mhm.
That's how in flux I felt this film was, where it's
Yeah.
like, if you like them, if your thing is the Foo Fighters, you are good. But if they're like venturing out to making more money in different ways, and he feel
Mhm.
like he got something here, which I'm sure
Is it
this is gonna do
horror?
hella
Is it
good.
horror comedy or is it music fucking musical comedy? Pick one.
Yes,
They're
let
all
us
great
know.
options. Just pick one.
Yeah, just gotta stick with one, and that's fine, because you stick with it. And some people do try to deviate from different things, but it doesn't always work. Certain people
Mhm.
have identities, and it's just always what's gonna be. If I say Michael Bay, you know what you're getting. These
Mhm.
things are attached to people's style, and you can go down the list. You go to Christopher Nolan, you know what you're getting. So I think, like, for them, if this is a start, I just would like to know what that identity is. And I absolutely will be checking out the next film if they have something coming up, but I just don't know what this film identity is. So that's another thing for, post in the comments. Let us know, what do you feel when you watch this film? Like, what's the identity of this film? Because it's important going forward. But yeah, I again, I tip the hat off to the for it being the first film. It has problems, definitely has problems in the plot, and within the script. It's enjoyable. The tone is all over. The comedy is a little bit all over. The gore is all over. I mean, it's just a sprinkle of all of these things in for 2 hours, and it picks
Mhm.
its parts. And shall I talk about acting? I mean, I can't judge. I don't. I really, this is like an NA to me, because this literally, I can literally say like, oh, the acting wasn't good, and then somebody will comment and say, well, that's who they really are. I don't know, because
Mhm.
they are playing themselves. So like, yes, is it an extension of who they are, or is it just them? And
Mhm.
that is in terms of acting. But I can tell you one person I know who definitely was acting: Lionel Richie.
Oh my God.
He definitely did his thing when he came in. So anything else you want to add about the enjoyment of this film, and then we'll get to the last part here.
No, not exactly time lost. That's my last comment. Yeah.
I think that's perfect. All right, so the ending really quick now to, again, full spoilers. So Dave essentially gets possessed in this film, and this possession is because he's possessed by a some type of rock demon. I didn't pick up the name, and I'm sure he's somebody of some importance, but I don't know. But he is some rock demon, and he also had a goal of completing the album, a song, but he never got to do it. So Dave had to come in order to. Dave had to be possessed in order for him to live out, fulfill his prophecy. But in this case, Dave had to kill his bandmates. So, spoiler alert, this is actually just the arc of how Dave became a solo artist. He killed his bandmates, and that's all that matters. And it's funny storytelling, because we all know that when a band dissembles and then somebody goes solo career, they typically say that is the death of the band. So it's funny how they kind of told that, because you think it's about them doing their entire thing, but it's truly about Dave going solo the entire time and killing off everybody, whether he's possessed or not. But like I said, he ends up being possessed, and they eventually do we call it an exorcism? Probably not, right? Or do they? Because they,
I mean, that's the only word that I would use to describe it.
Yeah, so then the demon was then pulled out of him. Then the original band members that he killed before they got there, they come back and they're just like, "Oh, you did our bid or whatnot." So, but they put the demon soul back into this possessed book. But Dave actually completed the song, so he's now one with the demon, and thus now he's on tour. So when you check out the tour, February 26th,
bring holy water.
just be prepared,
because shit's gonna go down. Too careful. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna go down. But I do want to bring up the one thing about the ending is that when you brought about the practical effects, there is a head being smashed under a van.
So good.
It's brilliant. I thought the film could have ended right there, and I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I do think the film should have ended a lot earlier. I just feel like so much was said that was not necessary, but I do understand that they were trying to make the running gag that you just mentioned, that, you know, this is the death of the band. So I understand wanting to get to that end point, but I think there might have been like a quicker way to do that instead of explaining the whole thing in order to like land the end of that final joke. But yeah, this was a long run time, especially after just watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre last week at an hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, no longer than an hour and 30 with full blown credits. So yes.
Yeah.
So, and I always like to say I like my films to be an hour and 30. So this definitely made me uncomfortable for as long as it is.
A little squirmy.
Yeah. Anywho, folks, Studio 666 is going to be in theaters February 25th. By all means, if you're a Foo Fighter fans, check it out. If you're not a Foo Fighter fans, check it out. You're just looking for a horror film, you listen to the review now, so you know what to do. If it sounds like something you still want to check out, then do so. Either way, come back in the comments, let us know your thoughts about it. And as I said in the beginning of this, you make sure too that you go check out Zero in the launch of her premiere podcast, Blurty Massacre. Premiere episode is available now, folks. Come back in my comments, let me know that you did your job by going over to hers and leaving comments, subscribing, and obviously rating, because that's what you do a podcast. Here you subscribe and you comment, there you rate and subscribe. So make sure you do the same. Leave a 5-star rating for her and the crew, and let her know and express your thoughts and gratitude about her premiere. I'm so proud of her. So express your gratitude as well. No doubt. But yeah, folks, jump in the comments. Let us know your thought about Studio 666. And be sure to tell Dave he's a lunatic, because this is definitely an expression of it. So, but yeah, let us know, folks, and we'll see you around for more reviews very soon.
about.